Brokerment is it's a lot like the app. It's very user-friendly. I had never used the electronic signing capabilities in Brokerment the other day. If you haven't done it, oh my gosh, try it. It was so much, it's easier than Dotloop, it's easier than DocuSign. I did it and I was like, hot dog, that was, it's our personal paperless filing system. We use Brokerment.
Okay, that's just for your own.
Well, we,
Anybody can use it.
if they buy it, yeah, they could use it. Yeah, it's what we use, and it's awesome. So one of the things you can do in Brokerment is go in and you add your checklist for your buyer, your seller, but then you go in and click Use Form, and when Use Form pops up, you just type in the little numbers in the form. So what I would do if it was me, if I were doing it, I would use Leanne's app and pull up like my numbers for title, because that's always one of the ones that I struggle with. I'm like, how much is title gonna cost? Where do these numbers come from? And so I drop in Leanne's numbers straight from the app into the form on Brokerment, okay? So let me give you what, if I really could teach the class the way I wanted to, on NetSheets, this is the way I would teach the class. It's not how much, I'm gonna go back and we'll go over these, but if I could teach it the way I wanted to, here's what I would say. I would say when I have a buyer walk in the door and I'm meeting for my buyer's consultation, the first thing I say, and the first thing I want you to say, and this is mandatory, guys, when you have a buyer walk in and they say, hey, I wanna see this house, it's $350,000 in River Chase. My first question to them is, hey, do you have a pre-approval? And if they say no, then I go, sorry. Protect yourself. That is as much about protecting you as it is anything. If they don't have a pre-approval, you are not a tour guide with keys. You don't go to that home, you don't open that door, because guys, you don't know what their intentions are, okay? If their intention is to really buy a house, you know what they're gonna say? They're gonna say, oh, do I need that? And you're gonna say, absolutely, I can't write an offer without it. Furthermore, I can't really show houses without it, because I can't let you into that house and waste that sweet seller's time trying to get their house presentable if you can't afford it. Furthermore, what I don't want to do is get you upset, because let me tell you something, when I show $1 million homes and then I go to my house at night, I'm not happy about my house anymore. So I don't want to show you a $350,000 house if you've got a $150,000 budget, because guess what? They're not the same. Okay, so the first thing I do when I meet with the buyers, I say, do you have a pre-approval? If they say no, I say, hey, here's a list of guys, pick one, call him right now, I'll go out of the room. I'm gonna leave, and you call him, and I want you to get pre-approved, because we're not going any further unless you do. And if they really want to buy the house, you know what they say? Okay, absolutely. And I'll hand them a list of 3 or 4 guys, and I say, call that list right there. Get you a couple quotes, takes 15 minutes. It's not a big deal, okay? So then what they do is, and by the way, on my list, I don't have Rocket or Quicken. I've got local people in Birmingham. Because guess what? If a loan starts going sideways, you know what I want to do? I want to walk in, I want to get on their desk and go, hey, what you doing? What's the problem and how can I help fix it? Okay? I don't want to be on hold for 45 minutes trying to get somebody to answer their phone at freaking Quicken Loans. Not going to do it. Furthermore, I'll tell you a quick tip. You didn't pay for this one, you get this one for free because you're not even here for this class. But if I've got the listing and an agent brings me an offer and I say, okay, who's the lender? And they go, oh, I've got a pre-approval from Quicken. I say, no, ma'am, we don't want that offer. I give it right back. I say, nope, get me somebody local and then we'll talk. Because I've had too many not close, too many go 3 weeks past closing date. I'll never do it again. So if they bring me an offer on my listing and they don't have a local lender, I just give it back.
What if you don't know? You just call the lender and talk to them? Or?
Yep, absolutely.
How do we do that legally? I mean, I'm just guessing.
You don't have to take any offer. But I tell them it's not a pretty offer. I've got a better competitive offer over here that I don't have to tell as the listing agent, you don't have to, your obligation's to that seller. That's how you legally do it. You have a fiduciary duty to protect the seller. The seller's best interest is to have a local agent, a local loan officer. If they don't, you're not looking out there for their best interest, because guess what? That loan is not going to close on time. But it's not going to close. So I don't do it. You don't have to do it. Like I said, that's your tip for free. You didn't pay for that one. Okay, so let's assume they have a local lender, okay? And what I do is local lenders that are worth their salt, when they tell me they get a local lender, if I get ready to write an offer, I call the local lender and say, hey, listen, I want to introduce myself. If we don't already know them, I know most of them. If I don't already know them, I call them up and go, hey, I want to introduce myself. You and I have a mutual client. I'm working with Mr. Brandy Eaton, and he's buying a house. And I know that we're going to go out looking on Saturday. So if I write an offer on Saturday, you're going to be hearing from me. Well, I'm gonna be on the golf course. Well, I don't give a rat's butt because I'm showing houses and here's what I'm gonna need from you on Saturday. If I write that offer, I'm gonna call you on Saturday or text you. You better have one at the ready, and I'm gonna say, hey, I need a fee sheet on Saturday. And pause right there and let me back up and say something. Have y'all seen that commercial? It's Progressive State Farm. It's an insurance commercial. The guy's getting the tattoo where it's not all right, it's not always all right. Whatever, that one. Stay in your lane, bro. That's what I'm telling you right now. Stay in your lane. Let me tell you what you're not. You are not a loan officer. Let me tell you what you're not. You're not an attorney and you're not a title company. So when we do these little jewels, we're giving them an estimate. We're playing horseshoes. All we have to do is get close. Well, what I don't like is when I get close and my close is $1,500 off. And that could happen when you're just getting close, right? Loan officers, it is their duty and they can get fined if they don't get within a certain percentage of what it actually is at the closing table. Did you know that? So that's why if I'm getting ready to write an offer, I tell that loan officer, I know I'm showing them Saturday, I could be writing an offer on Saturday, I'm gonna text you, I'll give you all the details of the offer and I want your fee sheet within 30 minutes. If they can't promise me that, I say, ooh, I may have to see if they can get another quote from another loan officer. Guess what? They'll automatic, I'll make sure I have my laptop with me. They'll get it to you. So I tell them, and it may sound demanding, it may sound harsh, but guess what? I'm there to serve my client. They better serve theirs too. So what I tell them is I want your fee sheet. When their fee sheet comes in, you know what I do then? Copy paste. I just copy all their numbers right here and I go sign it and I turn it in. Next sheet over. Class dismissed. That's what you do. That's how you do it. We'll walk through them because I have to. But this is the one that is in BrokerMint. So if you pull it up in BrokerMint and type the numbers in, that's the way I type everything. I don't like handwritten stuff. It's hard to read. Anytime there's open the door for ambiguity, I can't talk today. What was my word I was trying to say earlier? Subliminable, like an abominable. I can't talk today, and it's a great day to teach class. I don't like ambiguity in anything, so I don't want somebody to think it's a 7 and it's really a 1. So I type everything, and so I do it through BrokerMint. But if you do it off the one, it's fine. It's acceptable. It's still a net sheet. Any broker in Avast will allow it. I prefer these because I like them typed.
On the BrokerMint, do you have like attorney or whatever you come over here? Do you have to make the square or does it already click onto the square that you have to?
Christopher, can you answer that? I don't know the answer to that. If you use form in BrokerMint, don't they have all the squares already in there that you can just type it in?
We use the term map. Everything's already in there. All you gotta do is click on the square and fill it in. You have it all mapped.
Okay, so instead of me having to draw my square,
It's already there for you.
so I
Just
just
click
click
on
on
it
the
and start
square
typing it in.
and then type it in.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
If there's everything any missed, please give us a call so we can remap it if we need to.
Oh, okay, that's a good idea. That's great. Okay, thank you. Okay, so let's look on the seller net sheet first. Pull up seller net sheets, the one with color. Let's walk through it blank through blank, and I'm going to go pretty quick because honest to goodness, y'all, I don't ever do a net sheet by hand. The seller net sheet's really the only one I ever really sit down and do. The buyer net sheet, I honest to goodness copy and paste. That's all I ever do, I promise. But we'll walk through them line by line real quick. All right, so if you're looking at your seller net sheet, of course, seller, address, I never fill in purchaser because guess what? You have to do this with the listing agreement. This is part of your paperwork. It has to be turned in the beginning. So I don't know who's purchasing it. It'd be great if I did, but I don't. So I'll leave that blank. I also leave blank lender because I have no idea who the purchaser's lender is going to be. So this is the very first time I do one, okay? So the very first time I do one, that's what I do. Listing sales price, you know what you've got it in the MLS as. Drop on down. So listing fee and selling/co-op fee down the page, those are two separate lines. But whatever you negotiate your fee to be 5%, 6%, you're going to divide it by 2. Unless, and again, here's a free tip, you didn't pay for this one, unless you, a lot of times, I've got a listing right now that I've got dual rate commission going on it. The reason I do that is because it's going to be a tough house to sell, and I know that. So I'm holding out 3 and I'm keeping 2. That may sound crazy, but guess what? I'd rather have some dollars than no dollars. And I start dropping that commission on the buyer's side, I'm going to get no dollars. So I'm holding out 3, I'm keeping 2 because I want it sold. Okay?
Question there.
Gotta do what you gotta do.
When you're in that house, you're just going over there, what percentages?
Say that again.
When you're plugging your listing into it, and it goes over there and says percentages, and then it says, is this a dual?
Rate commission, right?
Did you mark no on there, or did you?
I did yes on this one because it is a dual rate commission.
Okay. So that's when yours is less than what you're providing for the buyer.
Or in some cases, it could be that mine's more. I've known an agent before who charged 4%. She held out 3 because she got them to agree to a 7% commission, and it's nobody's business how much you get on your side. Nobody needs to know that.
I'm just saying, because the reason why I'm bringing this up is that
Well, it's a good question.
it's out there listed, flat fee. And I'm getting told this a lot by sellers and investors, when they can go and get a flat fee. So then when I go in and see that the listing's out there, then you go to that dual commission thing, and it says no. Meaning they're offering 3% or 2.5.
Well, they're offering whatever stated. They have to put what they're offering, what they're holding out for the buyer's agent stated. So that's on there, black and white, somewhere in the listing.
Here, they'll have.
Oh,
no
not,
mark,
right.
Which I'm saying.
You know,
okay,
I don't know why their broker doesn't enforce that. To me, their broker should enforce that because they know that they're getting whatever their $1,000 fee or their $1,500 fee is. And, you know, I always tell my comeback to a seller on that is you get what you pay for. And what they're really doing is they're offering to sell your house next to nothing because they know they can take you as their buyer and go over here to somebody who's offering 3% for a buyer's agent because that's all they're trying to do is get you as their buyer. So good luck getting it sold. I hope they get you because you're going to get what you pay for.
Why not?
So that's always my,
But I mean, that's what's come back to me, so I see it when it's listed, and they say that that's what they're paying this agent, but then over here.
Yeah,
it's
that's
not,
just-
And I'm going, okay.
yeah, well, the dual rate, I've worked with those companies before and I know he charged them $1,500 for a selling fee on the particular deal I did, which was a bargain for them because it was a $700,000 house. So, I mean, you know, but his whole deal was to get them as a buyer, and in this particular case, it backfired because they built and didn't use him as a buyer's agent. So, okay, so the listing fee, the selling transaction fee, again, that's just going to be whatever it is. It doesn't have to be 5% divided by 2. Like in my case, it's 3 and 2. Okay. The attorney fee. So here is my rule of thumb on filling out a note sheet. I always estimate high because I would much rather them get a happy surprise at closing and then think, oh, I thought I was only going to get $10,000 and I actually got 12. And I'm like, hey, surprise. Because what you don't want is them to go, Brandy, you told me I was getting $12,000 and it's only 10. I needed that extra $2,000, right? So I always estimate high. So on my attorney fee, you're assuming that seller's going to pay half and buyer's going to pay half. Okay, you can do this one of 2 ways. You can put the entire attorney fee right here and tell them we're assuming the buyer's going to pay half, but they don't have to. We're going to assume that split, so I'm going to put the full amount right here. Or I'm going to put half and know that, hey, it could come back. You make sure over-communicate with your people. So in your attorney fee, I usually put the half and tell them, hey, I'm putting half attorney here, but it could be more. The number I normally put in there is $750, assuming the attorney's going to be $1,500. If an attorney costs $1,500 or more, I pitch a holy rolling fit that I'm not paying that amount. Again, I'm assuming high. I like an attorney that's going to charge us about $1,200 to $1,000. If they're charging $1,500, I'm mad, and they're Title South, and I'm mad about that. They charge about $1,700. They're expensive. And that's good. Negotiate with that. If they say, well, listing agent gets to pick, I say, well, it depends on who you pick. I don't have to agree. No, ma'am, you don't. I say, you can tell me that, but it doesn't mean it's true. Right? So if they say that, then I always just go, okay, well, as long as we agree.
So listing side normally picks sides?
They used to. They don't necessarily anymore. They used to all the time. That was kind of implied. But now I've got all the time where I'm the listing agent and a buyer will write a contract and they'll send it to me and go, buyer to choose. And I just write back, seller has to agree. I'm not letting them choose. I'm not letting them choose Title South because they're so freaking expensive. I'm not letting them choose a company who shall not be named. Think of like Voldemort, he who must not be named, because I'm not going to say it on video. But there's a company in Birmingham I will never use again because they hurt my seller so bad. They messed up the closing 6 ways to Sunday and cost them a bunch of money, and I'll never go back there. So I always just say seller has to agree or buyer has to agree. If they say they get to choose, I say, well, I have to agree with it.
Most mortgage companies, want to choose the title company.
Not necessarily. Some do, but that's yeah. Some have a preference. Yeah.
They have a lot too, Brandy, if they have a prelim with that title company, they're like, oh, I have a prelim with them, I'm already dealing with them. So
And I'm
might as
okay.
well close with them.
Well, I'm okay with title a lot of times, especially if it's prelim title. But we don't have to close with who you did your title. Just because they did title doesn't mean we have to close with it.
Do you have to pay for the prelim if you don't end up closing with them?
Yeah, that's just a
Cause
courtesy.
my aunt had a deal, she's pretty new, and she had that situation, they were saying she had to pay $1,000 for preliminary since they weren't closing on it.
That's just a courtesy.
That's what,
Tell her to tell them to suck a lemon. No, that's what you say that. No. Okay, where would I get? No, but I will after video. We'll talk. What I tell you is who not to use. Hey, Video World. All right, title search, the fee on title search. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, there used to be a company in town, Magic City Title, and you could go to their website and you could just plug in the purchase amount of the house and it would tell you how much title was going to be. You're nodding. I used to do it all the time. That's gone. They won't do that anymore. Have you checked it lately? You cannot do it. It's gone. They took that service down. So I struggled a lot with title, like, well, crap, how much is my title going to be? So what I'd normally do is I'd just call up Magic City and go, hey, y'all, I'm selling this house. What's title about going to be? And they would always tell me a number. Well, with our nifty, thrifty app right here, we don't have to do that anymore. My camera didn't turn, Chris. Did I do something wrong?
lost it,
How'd I do that?
got out of its range.
Oh, sorry. Hey y'all, sorry. Yeah. So with the Nifty Thrifty app that she just gave us, it cuts out a phone call because now you can just drop in your numbers and her app will tell you what that title amount should be. So that's a good little shortcut right there. Survey, so it's depending on the type of survey, depending on who's going to pay for it, and you're going to know that. What I would go ahead and do is drop in a placeholder right here of $250. That's just a safe amount. I drop in a placeholder. And then when you actually get a contract, of course, when you fill this out, it's going to be filled out by the contract. So if the contract had no survey, I would strike that line out when I do an updated net sheet. Because you know, and while I'm teaching net sheets, let's say this as a reminder, but you all should know this. You do a net sheet every time a circumstance changes, okay? So you do a net sheet for your seller the day you take the listing agreement. Then you do a net sheet when they say, oh, you were right. It is priced too high. Let's drop that price to what you told me to drop it to. Do another net sheet when they finally agree with you. And then let's say because they agreed with you, you dropped the price, you got an offer. Guess what? Do another net sheet. Okay, now what I don't do, don't get in trouble, Video World, because I'm saying something bad right here. What I don't do is I don't do a net sheet for every time we negotiate an offer. So let's say they offered me, my house is on the market for $360, and let's say they offer me $340. I'm not going to haul off and do a net sheet because they just said $340, because I know good and well my seller's going to say $365. And they're going to come back and say, oh, we're on the market for $360. They're going to say $360. And they're going to say $345. I'm not going to turn around and haul off and do a net sheet for $345. I'm going to wait until we have a signed contract. It's initialed and we know what that is. So let's say we all settled at $355. I'm going to do a net sheet at $355. Make sense? There's some people that would probably say stickler letter of the law is you do a net sheet every time. And I say, nothing's signed.
But we don't necessarily have to do a net sheet every time we have to drop the price. And the only reason why I'm going here, something came out from Montgomery about a month ago, talking about net sheets and stuff, and says that you don't really have to do a seller's net sheet until the first offer comes in.
I do it, but that's me. I'm maybe I'm overboard, but I do it.
You do it when the actual contract is done.
Oh, well, she was saying when you've got a listing, you don't have to do a net sheet every time you drop the price. Like I dropped the price last night and it's sitting in his inbox right now waiting on him to sign it. When I drop the price, I just go ahead and, because my net sheet's electronic, so it's really easy to change one number and it all goes bloop, 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 and it tallies it back up and I just kick it over for him to sign it. If I was hand,
And we're not allowed to ask,
each time you drop the price.
But every time that you present a new number to the buyer or seller, you must present a net sheet. And that's in the broker's class.
no, you're talking about offering, right? I'm talking about dropping a price. No, because now they've come out, they have a thing that came out about a month ago from Montgomery, talking about net sheets. One, you're not supposed to ask the seller how much their mortgage is anymore. That's something personal. Then second, a net sheet only needs to be filled out with your seller when an offer comes in. Now, Avast wants us to do it, and I understand because you want everyone to know what all that is. But I'm just saying, this
Sorry,
came
do you
out.
need me?
Did they pass it though, or was that just in legislature?
No,
They
no,
passed it?
the state real estate
Oh,
board.
I know, yeah, I know you're.
Yeah, that's what you're asking.
A couple of weeks ago.
We'll get clarification on it. Let's stop chasing the rabbit. Let's move forward so we can get finished with class because we started late and I want to end because people need to sell real estate. So let's get going. But we'll get clarification on that and get that out to everybody because that's a good point. Because we don't want people doing extra work they don't have to be doing. If you don't need to do it, because this listing I've got, we've dropped the price 4 times. So if I don't have to do 4 net sheets, I won't. So we'll get clarification on that.
On the mortgage, she said you're not supposed to actually sell the mortgage
You
payoff?
can ask them, but you don't have to ask them because it's a personal, it's a disclosure thing now out there, you know.
That doesn't make any
Well, how do
sense.
you do the net
I mean,
sheet?
how do you?
Now,
how
when
do
you get
do
down
that?
here, they don't have to tell you what their mortgage is.
That doesn't make any sense. They want to. They want to say.
They can
Stacy,
tell you, but what they're saying is you don't have to ask it and they don't have to tell you.
My people want to tell me.
Well, I've had one that didn't before.
No, because sometimes
Yeah,
don't
they,
want to
they
know how much
ask
money
me
they're
for
gonna
that.
profit.
Well, I've had one, and it wasn't with me actually. It was a realtor prior to me, and he came on to me and he goes, "Let me tell you my pet peeve: asking me how much I owe. It doesn't matter how much I owe; it's what the market's willing to pay for my house." And I'm like, "Oh, you felt like she was trying to set your price off what you owed?" And I was like, "No." I was like, "Look, I'm about to send you a spreadsheet with what's actually happening in the market, and if I ask you how much you owe, it's just so I can do your net sheet for you." You know, but I can see how somebody could get testy, so maybe they had a complaint. That's where that came from. So, okay, all right, carrying on. So we got down to survey. So I drop in a placeholder, and then when an actual offer comes in, and I update this based on the offer, that's when if my seller's paying for it, I need to know, is this a meet and bounds? Is it a lot and block? How much is this? Because they're different costs for the survey. It's not something that's always done. As a matter of fact, they're kind of few and far between. They really should probably be done more. All right, termite bond infestation report. I just always drop a placeholder in there of $250 because $250 is usually going to cover your wood infestation and the termite. Okay, it could be more if you've got an ancient house. I sold one down here in Southside, amazing historical home, but it was like $350 because they had to do special stuff, right? But $250 is a good placeholder to drop in. If you have any questions, always feel free to call one of the termite companies. They're so sweet. They'll talk to you. Alabama Professional bends over backwards to try to help you. There's a bunch. The Stark is good. There's one I won't say on camera that I don't like, but you, I'll tell you all this after class who I don't like. Feel free to call them and they'll tell you, here's how much we charge, blah, blah, blah. So but at $250 usually covers it. So we've already talked about the selling co-op fee, property tax prorated. I agree with that right here. On the buyer side, I don't. I'll tell you why when we get there. But I agree with that right there because it doesn't really matter for your seller because if they end up paying property tax at closing and it's already in the escrow, they get that money right back like a couple of weeks after closing when their escrow check comes back to them. So it's usually a wash on the seller side. So I don't get bent out of shape right there. And I'll tell you why I do on the buyer side in a minute. Home warranty premium, I put a placeholder in there of $650. If somebody comes at me with an $850 home warranty, I say, oh, ha, get out of here with that. go away. We're not paying that much. I usually will go $675, $650 for my sellers, and then I don't let somebody take me to the cleaners on a home warranty because they can. FHA, VA required fees. Stay in your lane, bro. I'll say that a lot. That's something that you don't need to. We're real estate professionals. We're not mortgage loan officers. Call the loan officer. They can give you that number. Fire dues prorated. I've honestly never really had that number be high enough that it even is a blip on the radar. I've seen where they're like $60 a year. So again, horseshoes. Nobody's going to get bent out of shape about that $60. I don't usually put it on here because I'm playing horseshoes. I just have to get close. Neighborhood gold program. I don't even know what that. I'm skipping that.
Fire dues, where do you find out about fire dues? It's on here usually. On here, the back of it, it tells about fire dues and us about HOA dues. See where it says HOA, their library, and fire.
Yeah, it's usually in the listing information if you are the listing agent, though. Tax records, the county can also tell you too.
Tax records to make sure. Does your buyer, seller may say, well, no, I don't have fire, and then you're like, yes, you do. And then when somebody buys the house, they inherit a $600 fire dues. And
Wow.
they're like,
That's a lot of fire dues.
yeah, fire dues is like $60. Just giving an example.
Perfect. Thank you, Stacy. So next line down, and this is one that I see a whole lot, buyer closing costs / prepaids. You know, and we all know that you get tons of offers on your listings, especially if they're, $150,000 or below. Those buyers need help with their closing costs. So that's always a big chunk. And if I'm selling house, like I sold an awesome house over in Center Point for $110,000. We actually sold it for $100 and where's Matt? Matt sold it for me. We ended up selling it for over list price. I think we sold it for $115,000. I had it on the market for $10,000. We sold it for $115,000, and we knew going in. I told my sellers, I said, "Hey, y'all, somebody buys this house is going to need some help with their closing." I said, "We're just in that price range where we're going to need help." And so I went ahead when I did their initial listing, even though I didn't have a contract or anything to go on. I just know from my experience, their buyers are going to ask. I dropped in $2,500 right there. I said their closing costs will be about $5,000. Because I just know that. And let's go ahead and estimate that we'll pay half of what their closing is going to be. And we dropped in a placeholder right there. We ended up paying actually less than that. But again, it was a happy surprise. And they were super happy because we got over list price for that one. Okay, any questions? Because I did that kind of fast. Any questions? You don't get to ask any questions because you weren't in here the whole time, Mammy Daniel. Any questions? All right. I asked for questions. I said, you don't get to ask any because you got up and walked out. All right, pick up your net sheet for a buyer. And honest to goodness, y'all, I'm not kidding when I say that I ask a lender to give me a fee sheet and I drop in the numbers. I haven't filled one of these out from scratch, and I could not tell you when. All right, so that's really what I do, but let's walk through it speedy quick, okay? All right, so origination fee, I'm going to say, what? If you got a lender that's charging you an origination fee, you might want to call a couple more because, hey, there's people that don't. But origination fee can be around 1% of the loan cost, just so you know. And there's some lenders that charge a flat origination fee. I used to have a guy, back when origination fees were super popular, they were 1%. I had a guy that did them for a flat $1,500. So if I had a buyer that was buying a $300,000 house, they saved $1,500 by just going with the flat fee guy, right? So origination fee, but like I said, I usually say, really? Call somebody else, man. There's a bunch of lenders out there that won't charge them. Appraisal fee, I don't really love this on here because the appraisal fee is always paid outside of closing. So I don't usually put it on here just because I don't want to muddy the water and have some stuff paid outside of closing. So I just usually don't put my appraisal fee on here because that's a credit card they give the lender and he's going to run that outside. So his credit report, that's $32 that's going to be paid outside of closing.
How come the appraisal amount is on the CD?
And it usually gets backed out. If you'll look, it'll be on there and then it'll be backed out somewhere. There'll be a line somewhere down there that'll say outside of closing or lender credits, and it'll be backed out. They have to show it legally. That's what the attorney has to do, but they'll always back it out somewhere. Dig around, go pull an old CD you've done and look for lender credit or miscellaneous credit or paid outside of POC cost, something like that, and you'll see a back out for that amount. Listing fee, if you're selling, I've never had a listing fee on a buyer's side. I've had the buyer's fee when you're selling a FSBO, and that FSBO will not pay you, and you make your buyer pay you for the services you rendered. That can go on here. Attorney fee, again, we've already kind of talked about it, so I'm gonna breeze over it, but always estimate high. I put on there $750, and I let them know this is assuming that the seller is gonna pay half. They may not, but let's assume they will. So that's what I dropped there. Recording fees, tax service fee, title policy. Okay, underwriting fee. I'm kind of breezing through those because I don't know if you looked at the app. Those are always numbers that are hard to come up with. Who knows what the heck the recording fee is at the stupid courthouse? I don't know. I usually call a title company and they'll tell me those numbers. But if you noticed, if you looked at her app at all, if you hit closing cost details, you clicked on that, it showed you every one of those numbers. It was on here. And again, if you have called your trusty loan officer and said, yo man, I need a fee sheet, it's also on there. And you can just copy his numbers, right? All right, survey, and again, if it's a survey and you've got the buyer and they're paying for it, call that surveyor and ask him because you want to get this right. And that's something that if you do have a loan officer and you copy his numbers verbatim, he's not going to know how much that survey costs either. We all know a survey's around $250, depending on, if it's just lot and block, if it's a normal old survey. But if you got somebody buying a big old hunk of land like Julie's about to sell, then it could be a meat and bounds, and those things can get expensive depending on the acreage we're looking at, okay? So you want to call the surveyor and actually get a number right there, even if you copy and paste like I do from the lender. Coming on down, VA funding fee, guess what? Stay in your lane, bro. Call that lender. Ask him what that number is, not your job. Document prep processing fee, courier express, amortization. Again, those come right off the lender fee sheet. And I always get cracked up that they charge us their fees for their courier. They're just passing that fee straight through to your buyer for them to have to pay to send the documents over. But that's what they're doing. Termite bond infestation, again, $250. Septic tank, I put a placeholder in here for $350. That's a pure placeholder. That can get super expensive if you're not careful. I had one get real squirrely on me back in the spring. So just know that that's a placeholder, and you make sure and tell that buyer, hey guys, we're gonna put $350 right here, but if something starts getting squirrely on this, don't panic. It's a contingency in our contract. When you write a contract and you make it contingent, you're gonna make it contingent on termite and septic. Okay, and again, here's a free tip for you for when you're not paying for it, because it's not part of this class. I had a lender, an agent, he's been an agent for a gazillion years, call me the other night and ask me this question because he had something going on with a septic inspection. He was like, Brandy, man, I need her to clear the inspection contingency, but she said she doesn't want to sign that we've cleared the inspection contingency because we still have inspections ongoing. And he meant the septic. And I said, well, you're getting her to sign that she's clearing the repair inspection, the home inspection. You have other inspections, and if you notice, if you read our contract says on there that you have X number of days to do additional inspections, and he had just been putting a date on there. I don't put a date. I put, we will do all additional inspections 10 days prior to closing. We will get you any requests that have to do with these inspections 7 days prior to closing. That's what I write in my contract, 10 days prior and 7 days prior. And the reason I do that is because it gives us time to get the termite done and the septic done. Because most termite companies and septic companies, they're gonna ask you, what's the close date on that? And if you say, oh, we're not closing this one until December, they're gonna say, well, I'm not doing it till December. Because what they don't want is they don't want an outstanding invoice on their books for 3 months, right? We understand that. Business people, we get it. So I'm like, okay, well, that's fine. So I put in my contract that we're not going to do it till 10 days prior to closing to give us some time to get it done, and then it gives them a day or two to get the contract or the information back to me, so if I need to ask them for anything. Okay, so put $350 on there, but always tell your buyer, hey, little buyer, listen, if the septic company comes back with something bad wrong, our contract is written contingent on us accepting the results that come back. If they come back and say the septic tank is falling apart, we got a whole new round of negotiations to go through, right? And you can negotiate that as long as you do it 7 days prior to closing, because that's what I wrote in my contract. I've tried, when I first started doing it, I tried to squeak by 3 days prior to closing, and everybody would chunk it back at me and tell me to suck a lemon, so I changed it to 7, and people will usually accept that. They'll let you get it to them 7 days prior to closing. All right, selling co-op fee. I breezed over that a second ago, but I'll talk about it real quick. If you have a buyer and you've been working with them and they want to see a for sale by owner house, the first thing I always do is I call that for sale by owner and I say, hey, I've got some buyer clients. I'm going to bring them to you. You know what? I sell houses all day long. I'd love to sell yours. What are you holding out for a fee? Great, you 3%. I'm going to send you something. Will you sign it before I show the house? Make them sign that sucker, because
What if you have somebody that says, I'm paying 0?
if they say you're paying 0, what you want to do, you really need to have the conversation with your buyer before you ever start showing houses. So that's how you combat this. Before you ever start showing houses, you look at your buyer and you say, hey, listen, you know you get my representation for free, right? And and I keep hitting my mic, I'm sorry out there, people. You get my representation for free, but it doesn't mean I work for free. What it means is that I get paid through the listing. When we buy a house that's been listed on the MLS, I'm getting payment by that agent splitting their commission with me because she's so grateful that I brought her a buyer, right? If you go out and you find a house that's FSBO, listen, I've been working my tail off for you. I have shown you so many houses. I'm looking out for your best interest. I'm negotiating these contracts. I'm doing everything, and I busted my tail, okay? So if you find a for sale by owner and they're not willing to pay a buyer's commission, I've worked hard. I deserve my paycheck. I'm going to look to you for you to pay 3% of the purchase price of this house. Now, you're sitting up here at your buyer's consultation, and they're excited. They're going to buy a house. They're going to find one of the MLS. They're going to go, absolutely. You said, great, sign right here. Contractually bound.
I normally call a FSBO and say, how much are you getting when I do the buyer? And when they said 0, that's when I'm like, 0? And I let my buyer know, well, you'll have to pay 3% of that because they refuse to give me any of the commission of the house. And most of my buyers said, let's move on.
They will. A lot of times they will. But some people will be like, well, that's my dream house. I'm like, okay, well, because we had that buyer consultation up front, you did sign that you would pay me my commission that I've worked super hard for, and I'm going to continue to work hard for all the way through closing. So you've already got them contractually obligated because you did it in your buyer's consultation. So make sure that you're covering your bases there. I got burned by that early on in my career. Well, I did not do that up front in the buyer's consultation. They found a FSBO and left me high and dry, and I had probably shown them 20 houses. Yep. But then they called me a few years later to sell it. I was like, you turd. I'll take a turd's money. It's fine by me. I sold their house. And
Sometimes they go to sell by owner before they even tell you.
I know. Oh, it's so frustrating. All right, so scooting on down. Final inspection fee. I see this very seldomly, but you could have an inspector that's going to charge to come back. Usually it's a cost paid out of closing, though. It's outside closing. So let's move on down to property tax prorated. I don't love this that I can't write in numbers right here. You can down under the prepaid items, but I make sure that I get those property taxes in there. True story, first closing I ever had, I had a buyer, sweet Benji, loved me some Benji. Benji was my first ever client. We get ready to go to the closing table, and they said, oh yeah, the attorney goes, hey, by the way, real quick, let's just go ahead and collect a full year's property taxes up front, and I know we're closing in October, and property taxes are paid in arrears, but let's go ahead and collect a full year on top of our prepaid we set up, because we set up a prepaid of like 3 or 4 months to go ahead and get the escrow set up. He said, but let's go ahead and collect a full year because the property taxes needs to be paid in. This was a foreclosure. We know we got some back tax. It was a big mess, and my poor buyer was like, oh. I like to go ahead and make a quick phone call right there to the county just to verify what's out there, what's really done. And a lot of times this will pop up on title, especially if you've done a preliminary title. If there's anything out there like back property taxes, that's going to pop up there too. But if you've got the buyer, you don't know if that listing agent's done a preliminary title or not. It never hurts to make a quick phone call to the county right there.
I love calling the county.
I make so many phone calls. I like to be overly cautious. It just kind of saves my tail. But right here, if you're writing an offer on the fly and you're sitting at the hood of your car and you're doing this offer, I go ahead and just pull whatever the property tax number is and dump it, the full amount right there to say this is what we could be looking at. I'm going to call the county. We'll get a really good number, but let's go ahead and look at the full amount of what a property tax is for a year right there. So I go ahead and drop in the full thing because again, I like to overestimate on everything. I'm always too high on everything. All right, so prepaid interest. We drop down to these prepaid items, and again, here's why I like to copy and paste from a loan officer. So prepaid interest. Y'all, that goes back to what their credit score is. That goes back to what their interest rate is. Stay in your lane, bro. I don't need to know their credit score. That's personal information that they share with their loan officer. So this prepaid interest, I'll usually, let's say it's a $150,000 house, I'll drop a placeholder in there of $250 if I don't have a fee sheet. If I've got a fee sheet, I just drop in that number because I don't need to know all their personal info. I just drop in that number and rock on, okay? Homeowners insurance, it is a fair estimate, and again, we're just trying to get an estimate when we're writing that offer. It's a fair estimate to assume $100 a month. So I drop in 12 months worth of homeowners, plus I usually do 4 months for escrow, drop it in 16 months right there of my prepaids. If you've got a funky house, my beautiful house I sold on South Side that was 100+ years old, it was a lot more than $100 a month. But again, you're trying to get close, and you could tell them, hey, listen, guys, this number could change a lot depending on the homeowner's insurance quote you get. If you go to the general to save some time, you're probably going to pay out the nose for your homeowners. So this number could be a lot higher than what I have right here. If you go to Allstate or Nationwide or State Farm, you're probably going to get a lot prettier number. It's probably going to match up with what I've got right here. So again, I'm trying to get you a placeholder. Property taxes, we talked about that one. And then if they have PMI, again, stay in your lane, bro. This is something you would need to get from the loan officer. There's no way for you to know that unless you're talking to the loan officer when you're filling out this information. Then do your math, add it up, add, subtract, boom, you're done. Fee sheet, they sign it. Any questions?
What's the columns 1, 2, 3?
I'm sorry?
The 1, 2, 3 columns.
You do it over again?
Oh, so that's if you, do it over again. So if you want to use the same sheet and say, okay, this is when I use 1, 2, 3 especially, is when I have multiple offers. My little listing out in Center Point, we have 4 offers. So I had 1, 2, 3, and then I just added the 4th number out here so they could see their net right across the bottom of what they, and like I circled the one, I was like, this one's the most money. This one they want to close the quickest. Mac McDaniel works in my office. If he does something wrong, I'll strangle him. You want to go with this offer. It made him the most money and it made the most sense. And that's why I use the quickest, 2 weeks. Well, 4 days, it was a cash offer, but a real close with a mortgage, 2 weeks. Just, it's 2 weeks in a day. But I've done a cash offer in 4 days because I was ready to kill my buyer and made him do. It's a whole story, girl. All right, any questions? All right, ma'am?
Great job.
Oh, well, thank you. You're my God. If you have any questions, feel free to yell at me outside of class, and I'll answer anything. And yeah, I'll tell you the answers on that.